bring in Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera senior political analyst, to look at all of this. So, Marwan, we've just heard from Qatar, Egypt, the United States, all suggesting that the main thrust of their efforts would be to push for a ceasefire in Gaza. Is that in any of their hands to really decide right now, either Qatar, Egypt or the US?
Well, look, if it was, or if it were in their hands, we would have had a deal already a year ago, or at least several months ago. The problem is that the mediators have acted in goodwill, but the Israeli government has not. And the Biden administration, as we just heard, Jake Sullivan continues to parrot Israeli lines, continues deceptively to defend Israel's position that is indefensible. We all know, and Washington knows, that it was Netanyahu that backed out each and every time, including from America's own initiative that was adopted by the UN Security Council. While Netanyahu sees the war on Lebanon as a war of choice, at least the past 7 weeks, he and his coalition see the war on Gaza as more of an existential war for the survival of his coalition, his ideology, and even his own political career. And that's why I don't see him moving in towards a ceasefire anytime soon. In fact, if you heard his statement, it sounds nothing like what Jake Sullivan just told us. Netanyahu said right after the cabinet meeting that approved the ceasefire in Lebanon that one of the 3 reasons why they did that in order to free Israeli military to focus on Gaza. It's not to free the political will to reach a ceasefire deal with Gaza, not at all. If anything, it was to free the Israeli military in order to focus on the war on Gaza.
And despite all this hopeful rhetoric over Gaza, the US, according to some reports, has followed up the Lebanon ceasefire with the approval of another $680 million arms sale to Israel. What should we make of that happening in the wake of the Lebanon deal?
It's just one of those incredible phenomena of Israel-US relations, the so-called special relationship. Whenever Israel commits crimes, such as war crimes in Lebanon or in Gaza, whenever we have a war criminal in Israel, at least indicted for that by the International Criminal Court, they're rewarded with more arms and more money by Washington. It's just phenomenal that the Israelis continue to be rewarded, continue to be saved by Washington, because that's how Washington treats its, spoiled brat of an ally. Israel commits the problems, commits the crimes, it gets America involved in wars it has no choice in, and it carries the crimes, and then they are rewarded. Why? Of course, we need an hour or 2 to discuss, but among other reasons is that there's a strong Israel lobby in Washington, and we have a self-declared Zionist in the White House that is really ready to sell Israel more arms. And by the way, the word sell is also deceptive because it's part and parcel of that $40 billion that the Biden administration committed over 10 years. And it's also, American administration committed over 10 years, and it's part and parcel of the $20 extra billion that the Biden administration granted to Israel. So there is no buying. It's more like granting Israel another $700 million of arms.
If indeed Israel is being rewarded, in your words, in the wake of its Lebanon campaign, I wonder how will Hezbollah and indeed Iran reflect on what's happened to the group and Lebanon itself? On reflection, was it worth it politically and militarily for Hezbollah?
Well, in terms of their public posture, they're certainly trying to celebrate as victory. In fact, they made a statement to that effect that they came out victorious. To my mind, no 2 parties can come out victorious of a war. War is a zero-sum game. So either Israel lost or Hezbollah lost. If they both say they're won, that means they both lost. But yet again, they have different perception of victory. I mean, to put it in some crude words, Israel mourns the death of its soldiers. Hezbollah celebrates the martyrdom of its activists and leaders. So there's two different perceptions here. Hezbollah boasts of being able to resist the Israeli attempt at occupation. The Israelis boast of the capacity to decapitate and to assassinate and to bomb the hell out of Lebanon. So they have different perception. Asymmetrical wars come not just because of their unequal militaries, because they fight differently and they win differently. And hence also now the so-called truce or the peace that follows will also be asymmetrical. I'll give you one quick example. For example, we have this 13-point deal that is supposed to disarm Hezbollah and supposed to push it south of the Litani. Most of Hezbollah's fighting force in the south comes from the south. They are people who live in those towns and villages in the south. They're not going to migrate tomorrow. They're going to still be there. And most of Hezbollah's arms is underground. It's not actually, declared out there that they're going to, inspected by the Israeli military or by the oversight committee that's, France and the United States. So a lot of this doesn't make sense when you're involved in asymmetrical conflict or in asymmetrical war or in asymmetrical peace. Because this is not two states coming to a deal, and hence they're going to have very clear oversight and inspection moving forward. As, for example, in the case of Egypt and Israel, where they have 45 years of a peace deal, and it's very, precise, and Israel withdrew from every single inch of Egyptian territory, and 45 years they had peace. With Hezbollah, with Hamas, even with the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, it's a whole other deal.
Okay.
It's far more complicated.
Before you go, Marwan, the US and France have described this as an opportune moment to restore a fully functioning democracy in Lebanon. Is it presumptuous to assume the disarming, the degrading of Hezbollah will in any way mean a restoration of political and economic stability in the country?
Probably the latter, if at all. But for every time I heard a Western leader speak about prosperity and democracy in the greater Middle East, for each of every time I had $1, I would have been a millionaire by now. Remember democracy in Afghanistan, human rights, and this and that, and women's rights. It's all humbug. It's just the sales pitches that each and every one of them are not convinced by. Lebanon is a very complicated sectarian situation. They had a Taif agreement from 1989. They've been living with it, kind of in a complicated situation between Shiites and Sunnis and Christians and Druze and so on and so forth. I think they will move forward. They probably will try to heal their wounds, elect a president. They try to coexist together, hopefully in a better way than they did before. Maybe Hezbollah will come out a bit more modest, maybe not. But clearly, this is a Lebanese issue for the Lebanese to resolve. It's nothing that will be resolved by war, certainly not by American-supported Israeli bombardment of Lebanon. That's not the way to go. This is for the Lebanese to settle, and hopefully the Lebanese, who prove to be more industrious than most people in this world, or certainly in this region, are more than capable of resolving their problem, or not, because they choose to.
All right, Marwan, as always, many thanks. Marwan Bishara there.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.